The echo of the judge's gavel split the silent courtroom, each strike carrying the weight of betrayal. Anna said, "They can't do this to us, not after everything we've endured." Michael gripped her trembling hand, his eyes fixed on the jurors who shifted uncomfortably. Their faces betrayed guilt, but their verdict had been delivered, a cruel denial of truth. Sarah whispered, "Justice has slipped from us again," her voice cracking under the strain. David stood tall, his jaw clenched as he glared at the opposing counsel, smirking with quiet satisfaction. Outside, rain lashed against the tall windows, each drop hammering like accusations no one would acknowledge. The family's unity, scarred yet unbroken, carried the weight of their loved one's memory. In the hollow silence after the ruling, grief burned into fury. Nothing would end here. The fight for justice had only just begun. The courthouse doors swung open with a metallic groan, and cold rain whipped against their faces as they stepped outside. Anna said, "They want us broken, but they will never silence us." Michael guided her down the steps, his hand steady even as his knuckles whitened from tension. Sarah wrapped her coat tighter, her eyes darting toward reporters gathering beneath umbrellas. David muttered, "They smell blood, not truth," as flashbulbs ignited the storm-soaked night. The world outside did not mourn their loss. It consumed it. Each camera lens twisted their pain into spectacle, every question hurled like stones. Anna lifted her chin, defiance simmering beneath grief. For every voice that tried to bury their fight, their determination sharpened. This was not an ending. It was a public vow. The reporters closed in, microphones thrust forward like weapons. "Do you regret fighting this case?" one shouted over the storm. Anna's eyes narrowed as she answered, "Regret belongs to those who lie." Michael raised his arm, blocking the crowd from pressing too close. Sarah murmured, "They're circling like vultures, pulling Anna closer to her side." David snapped, "Enough!" his voice cutting through rain and camera clicks. For a heartbeat, silence followed, broken only by thunder rolling overhead. The storm matched the storm within them, heavy and relentless. Their refusal to be silent became the only weapon they could wield tonight. The crowd would twist their pain, but the truth, raw, scarred, and alive, was theirs to defend. Back inside the car, windows fogging under storm's breath, silence filled the small space. Anna whispered, "I keep hearing his voice, as if he's here with us." Michael reached for her hand again, murmuring, "We carry him in every step we take." Sarah exhaled shakily, brushing rain from her face, her voice low. "They think this ends tonight, but they don't know what's coming." David started the engine, headlights cutting through the downpour. "We fight until they cannot ignore us," he said, determination hardening his tone. The car pulled into the flooded streets, tires cutting through water. The city blurred beyond glass, rain and grief distorting every light into fractured halos. Yet in that storm, their vow burned with clarity. The car slowed as they passed the memorial, candles flickering despite the storm's breath. Anna pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, "We will not let them forget." Michael said quietly, "He's with us always." Sarah's voice broke as she added, "This fight is his legacy." David pulled the car over, their eyes fixed on the rain-soaked flowers and photographs trembling in the wind. The city roared around them, indifferent, but the memorial glowed with fragile resilience. Anna exhaled, tears mixing with stormlight, and said, "This is where it begins again." In that moment, the family became more than mourners. They became warriors bound by memory, unafraid of what waited in the shadows. Morning light filtered through heavy curtains as the family gathered in the modest living room. Anna said, "Every breath feels borrowed without him here." Michael sat forward, adding, "We can't keep grieving quietly. They win if we do." Sarah pressed her hands together, her voice soft but steady. "This is bigger than us now. We carry him by carrying this fight." David paced near the window, rain dripping down the glass, muttering, "They want us afraid, but fear is fuel." The room was lined with photographs of their loved one, each frame a reminder of the void left behind. Anna's gaze lingered on one smiling picture, her chest tightening. She whispered, He deserves more than candles in the rain. He deserves truth. In that dimly lit room, grief crystallized into purpose, an unshakable vow shared in silence. The air grew heavier as Anna spread files across the coffee table, documents marked with red stamps and black ink. She said they buried evidence, twisted every line. Michael leaned over the papers, shaking his head. They rewrote truth like it was theirs to own. Sarah traced one page with trembling fingers, whispering, "Every detail screams his name, but they silence it." David stopped pacing and slammed his palm against the table, muttering, "If they think this ends in the courtroom, they don't know us." Lightning cracked outside, shadows bending across their faces. The silence that followed was filled with the hum of determination. Anna inhaled sharply, her voice firm. "If the system failed us, we will become the system they can't ignore." The family's grief turned into strategy. Later that night, the storm subsided, leaving streets slick with reflection. Inside the kitchen, Sarah brewed coffee, her voice low. "We must outlast them." Anna leaned against the counter, whispering, "I feel him pushing me forward." Michael rubbed his temples, muttering, "They control everything, judges, lawyers, the press." David stood in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the streetlight glow. He said, "Control breaks when truth is louder than fear." Sarah placed steaming cups before them, her hand lingering on Anna's shoulder. Anna raised her eyes, saying softly, "He deserves a voice and we'll give him ours." Around that table, the air pulsed with quiet defiance. In the stillness, the family's exhaustion became fire. The following morning, the family stood in front of the mirror-lined hallway, each face reflecting determination mixed with fatigue. Anna adjusted her coat and said, "If we show fear, they win." Michael tightened his tie, replying, "Let them see us stand together." Sarah's eyes softened as she tucked Anna's hair back, murmuring, "We've already carried worse than this." David slipped files into his bag, his tone sharp. "Today they learn we will not bend." Outside, the rain had calmed, leaving puddles gleaming under pale sun. The weight of grief pressed heavy, but unity carried them forward. Anna whispered, "We fight for him and for us." Their reflections stared back, scarred but unbroken, soldiers armed with truth. At the city square, the family gathered by a makeshift vigil where others had placed flowers and candles. Reporters loitered nearby, whispering. Anna stepped forward, voice trembling yet strong. "We will not be forgotten, nor will he." Michael's arm wrapped around her shoulders, saying firmly, "This fight will shake every wall they built." Sarah lit a candle, the flame flickering against her wet cheeks. She whispered, "Every flame is a promise." David stood tall, facing the crowd. "This is the beginning," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. The city noises roared around them, buses, car horns, and voices. Yet here, amid grief and defiance, a movement stirred. The family's vow had become public, and the first sparks of justice lit the air. The family sat across from a weary journalist in a dim cafe corner, steam rising from untouched mugs. Anna said, "They erase evidence as if truth were ink on water." Michael leaned forward, voice steady, "But you can print what they fear most." Sarah's hand trembled as she slid a folder across the table, whispering, "This is what they tried to bury." The journalist hesitated, glancing toward the door. David muttered, "If you walk away, you become part of them." Rain tapped against the window, the sound brittle against the rising tension. The air thickened with unspoken danger, yet Anna's gaze never faltered. She whispered, "He deserves the world to know." In that moment, silence bound them. An agreement sealed not by law, but by risk. Night deepened as they returned home, shadows stretching across the narrow street. Michael said, "If he prints it, they'll come for us faster." Anna pressed her palm against the doorframe, whispering, "Let them. Fear only feeds them." Sarah's voice cracked as she added, "They already took him. What else can they take?" David looked back at the empty street, eyes sharp, muttering, "They'll try to take us all." A dog barked in the distance, the sound echoing hollowly. Inside, the house creaked like it carried secrets of its own. Yet amid the dread, Anna's voice rang clear. Every threat they send proves we're closer. The family carried that truth like armor. Inside the dim kitchen, papers scattered across the table, the family whispered over new findings. Michael tapped a photo, muttering, "Look, dates don't match." Anna leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "They falsified timelines." Sarah whispered, "It's all deliberate, every mark meant to erase him." David slammed his fist softly on the table. "This is the thread that unravels everything." The flickering light above buzzed faintly, its shadows stretching across their determined faces. Outside, the storm had gone, but the weight of war remained. Anna whispered, "If they control the law, we will control the truth." That night, their grief became evidence, their pain sharpened into weapon. The next day, the family met a trusted friend in a secluded parking lot. Sarah asked, "Do you still stand with us?" The man hesitated, scanning the lot nervously. Anna stepped closer, saying, "You once swore loyalty to him. Don't break it now." Michael added sharply, "If you walk away, you betray more than us." David folded his arms, his gaze unrelenting. The man's voice wavered. "They'll destroy anyone who helps you." Anna whispered, "Then let them try." Cars passed in the distance, their headlights cutting briefly across the tense silence. The promise of betrayal hung heavy, but so did the weight of defiance. This meeting carved new lines in the war for justice. That night, the family gathered once more in the living room, shadows heavy across the walls. Anna said, "We're walking deeper into fire." Michael replied, "But it's the only way through." Sarah clasped Anna's hand, whispering, "He would want us to burn for truth, not fade in silence." David's eyes narrowed as he stood near the window, scanning the empty street. "Every step risks everything," he said, "but surrender risks more." Outside, a car slowed, headlights washing briefly over the house before moving on. The moment hung with quiet fear and sharper resolve. Anna whispered, "Then let the fire begin." And with that, grief transformed fully into war. The family huddled around the dining table, papers and photos spread like shards of broken truth. Anna whispered, "This piece doesn't fit." Michael leaned closer, brow furrowed, because someone wanted it hidden. Sarah's voice trembled as she held up a faded document. "This signature. It's his, but it's wrong." David's eyes narrowed, whispering, "Forgery." A heavy silence filled the room. The realization cracked through the air like thunder. Anna pressed her hand to her chest, whispering, "Someone we trusted signed this." Michael muttered darkly, "Then betrayal was inside our walls all along." Outside, the night was still, yet the truth roared louder than any storm. The weight of treachery crushed their grief, replacing it with fury. Sarah traced the forged signature with her fingertip, her voice breaking. It belonged to someone close. Anna's face stiffened, whispering, "It's the same hand that swore to protect us." Michael slammed his palm against the table, muttering, "We trusted a liar." David stood rigid, fists tightening. "Then we hunt for the traitor in our own circle." The air turned heavier, suffocating in its weight. Each face flickered with disbelief and rage. Anna's eyes brimmed with tears she refused to shed. "He was betrayed by the very ones who claimed loyalty," she said. Their vow sharpened into something deadlier, not just to fight the system but to uncover the enemy hidden in plain sight. The next day they confronted their trusted ally in a quiet office. Anna said softly, "We found your signature where it shouldn't be." The man's eyes widened, but his mouth curved into a faint smile. Michael stepped forward, rage simmering. "How much did they pay you to bury him?" Sarah's breath caught, her body trembling as she whispered, "You swore you stood with us." David's voice cut sharp as a blade. "Truth or silence? Choose now." The man's silence was louder than denial. His gaze avoided theirs, drifting toward the window, where daylight cut across his face. Anna whispered, voice trembling but fierce, "You killed him twice. Once in life, and once in truth." The betrayal was now undeniable. The Allah's voice broke the silence. "I did what I had to," he muttered. Anna's breath hitched. "Had to? You chose them over us." Michael's fists trembled at his sides. "You betrayed not just us but him." Sarah's whisper cracked like glass. "You sold his memory." David stepped closer, shadows cutting his face, muttering, "And you think we'll forgive you?" The man looked pale, his hands shaking as he whispered, "They own everything. I had no choice." Anna's voice rose, sharp and trembling. "There's always a choice." The room pulsed with grief turned fury. Trust had died, and war was the only path left. They left the office, footsteps echoing in the deserted hall. Anna whispered, "He was the shadow all along." Michael muttered, "Betrayal burns deeper than loss." Sarah clutched Anna's arm, whispering, "We trusted poison." David's jaw clenched as he said, "Then we purge it from every corner." Outside, wind rushed through the city streets, carrying fragments of their rage into the night. Each step away from the office carried the weight of new resolve. Anna's voice, low but steady, sealed their course. Justice for him now means justice against them all. What began as grief had transformed into vengeance, sharp, unyielding, and alive. The courthouse once again loomed before them, its steps slick with rain and its columns towering like judgment itself. Anna whispered, "This is where we face them head-on." Michael placed his hand on her shoulder, murmuring, "We walk in as one." Sarah's eyes darted to the reporters already gathering, her voice steady but strained. "They will twist every word we say." David's jaw clenched as he adjusted his tie. "Then let every word strike like a blade," he muttered. Thunder rolled across the gray sky, and the crowd's noise swelled. Anna took a step forward, her voice trembling but fierce. "He walks with us today, and they cannot silence him." Their grief had been tested, their unity betrayed, but this was the battlefield where justice might finally be seized. Inside the packed courtroom, tension pressed like a weight on their shoulders. Anna stared across the aisle at the betrayer, his smug grin cutting deep. Michael leaned close, muttering, "Every lie ends today." Sarah clasped her hands together, whispering, "Please let them hear us." David's glare locked onto the opposing counsel, who shuffled papers with calculated ease. The judge called for order, gavel echoing like a drum of war. Anna's chest rose sharply as she said, "This is his voice, through us." The betrayer shifted in his seat, his smirk faltering under their unified defiance. The silence that followed was charged, like the air before a storm breaks. The testimony began, voices sharp, evidence contested, every word a battle. Anna rose, holding the forged document high. "This is the lie they built their empire on," she said, her voice shaking but unwavering. Michael's fist tightened on the table, his knuckles white. Sarah whispered to herself, "Let them see the truth," tears streaking her face. David stood with her, steady and unyielding, his tone like steel. "You betrayed us, and you betrayed him," he declared. "He." The betrayer's face blanched under the weight of their words. Opposing counsel objected, voice raised, but the judge's gavel cracked louder. In that moment, grief thundered into defiance, turning silence into a weapon the family wielded with precision. The room erupted with shouts, objections, and murmurs, yet Anna's voice cut through it all. "You cannot bury him twice," she cried. Michael rose beside her, his voice booming, "Truth survives even when you try to kill it." Sarah pressed her trembling hand against Anna's back, whispering, "We are his justice." David slammed his palm on the table, his eyes blazing. "Your lies end here," he growled at the betrayer. For the first time, the betrayer's eyes wavered, his composure cracking under their fury. The judge called for silence, gavel echoing like thunder. The family's vow had never been louder, never been more dangerous, never been closer to shattering the walls built against them. The climax struck when the betrayer broke under pressure. His voice cracked as he stammered, I did what they asked." Gasps rippled through the room. Anna's eyes burned as she shouted, "You killed truth for them." Michael clenched his fists, whispering, "He finally admits it." Sarah covered her mouth, tears falling freely. David pointed directly at him, his voice sharp as a blade. "Now the world knows what you are." The silence that followed was absolute, the betrayer's words ringing in every ear. Justice was not yet won, but the tide had turned. The truth had clawed its way into daylight, and it could not be buried again. The courtroom sat in stunned silence after the betrayer's confession, whispers swelling like waves against the walls. Anna whispered, "The mask has cracked." Michael leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. "They can't hide behind him anymore." Sarah wiped her cheeks, her voice trembling. "We carried this weight for too long." David's eyes stayed locked on the judge, muttering, "Now it's in their hands." The air grew heavy as the judge called for order, gavel striking like a heartbeat. The betrayer slumped in his chair, pale and broken, while opposing counsel shuffled nervously. Anna gripped Michael's hand tightly, whispering, "No matter what they decide, truth has already spoken." In that moment, silence felt louder than any verdict. The judge's voice rang steady as he announced deliberations would resume. Anna whispered, "This weight will cut deeper than the trial itself." Michael nodded, murmuring, "But truth has been spoken, and that seed can't be buried again." Sarah leaned into her chair, eyes closed as she breathed shakily. "If only he could see this day." David muttered darkly, "In a way he does. He's here in every word." The jury filed out, faces unreadable, their silence a weight heavier than chains. The family sat together, hands brushing against each other in fragile unity. Every heartbeat stretched into an eternity, each second another trial of patience. Anna whispered, "Whatever comes next, we will not bend." Hours passed before the jury returned, the weight of their footsteps echoing across the silent floor. Anna's chest rose sharply, her whisper barely audible, "It's here." Michael's hand clenched into a fist against his leg, muttering, "Whatever it is, we face it together." Sarah gripped her necklace, whispering, "He deserves truth at last." David leaned forward, voice low and steady, "Then we listen without fear." The foreman unfolded the papers slowly, the rustle like thunder in the silence. Eyes darted across the courtroom, breaths held. Anna's gaze locked on the foreman, her body trembling, but her spirit unbroken. Truth hung in the air, fragile and waiting to strike. The verdict was read aloud, every word slicing through the silence. "Guilty," the foreman declared, his voice firm. Gasps rippled across the room. Anna's tears spilled as she whispered, "Justice breathes again." Michael exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief, muttering, "We carried him here." Sarah sobbed openly, pressing her hands to her face, whispering, "This is for him." David's jaw tightened as he muttered, "And for us all." The betrayer's head dropped, shame heavy on his shoulders. Opposing counsel turned pale, fumbling with his papers. The judge's gavel struck once more, finalizing the moment. The family, scarred and battered, rose together as one. Their fight had been heard. Justice had spoken. Outside the courthouse, the rain had cleared, leaving the sky painted with streaks of gold. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, but the family walked as one. Anna whispered, "He's finally free." Michael murmured, "And so are we." Sarah clutched Anna's hand, whispering, "We carried his memory into light." David looked out over the crowd, his voice steady, "And we will guard it forever." The city roared with noise, yet their steps felt calm, steady, victorious. For the first time since their loss, the weight lifted just enough to breathe. Justice had come, scarred but undeniable. Their vow was fulfilled, their fight immortalized. The family returned home, the house silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Anna whispered, "The silence feels different tonight." Michael set his jacket aside, murmuring, "Because justice finally breathed through these walls." Sarah lit a single candle on the mantel, her voice trembling, "This flame is not for mourning, it is for memory." David leaned against the window, watching the street outside, muttering, "But shadows still linger." The photographs of their lost loved ones seemed to glow under the candlelight, each frame a reminder of why they had fought. Anna touched the glass of one photo, whispering, "We carried you to light." For the first time, the silence did not feel empty. It felt sacred. The next morning, the world outside seemed unchanged. Cars passed, neighbors chatted, and the city pulsed with routine. Anna said softly, "They will forget this trial by next week." Michael shook his head, replying, "But not us. We live it every day." Sarah brushed her hand across the table, murmuring, "His name will never vanish, not in this house." David poured coffee, his voice low. "We carved his truth into history, even if they look away." The sun spilled through the blinds, warm yet indifferent. Anna's gaze lingered on the light, whispering, "The world moves on, but we remain the guardians." Their grief had found a new form, memory that refused to fade. At the cemetery, the family stood before the headstone, rain misting lightly across the ground. Anna placed fresh flowers, whispering, "We carried you to truth." Michael bowed his head, murmuring, "Your fight was ours, and we finished it for you." Sarah's voice cracked as she said, "We never let them bury you in silence." David's hand pressed firmly against the cold stone, his voice steady. "They tried to erase you, but we made you eternal." The rain pattered gently, each drop falling like a hymn. Anna closed her eyes, whispering, "Rest now, we carry the fire." Their unity bound the silence, a promise etched deeper than stone. That evening, the family gathered around the dining table again, but this time without documents or chaos. Anna whispered, "This table feels lighter now." Michael gave a faint smile, murmuring, "Because truth sits with us." Sarah poured tea, her voice soft. "He is still here, in every word we speak." David looked across at each of them, muttering, "The fight has ended, but the war of memory will never stop." The lamp glowed warmly above, a rare stillness filling the room. Anna smiled faintly through tears, whispering, "We are scarred, but we are unbroken." The night embraced them not with fear, but with quiet peace. Later that night, Anna stood alone at the window, city lights flickering in the distance. She whispered, "Justice has many faces, but tonight it looks like him." Michael entered quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Sarah's voice echoed faintly from the hall, "He lives in us still." David's shadow appeared in the doorway, his voice low, "We stopped at nothing because love demanded it." Anna's eyes welled as she whispered one final time, "He is gone, but never silent." The city lights blurred through her tears, glowing like stars that refused to die. The story of their fight was not just justice won, it was a haunting truth left behind forever.